All right, everyone, welcome on Benjamin Brown as promised. Say hey.
What's up, buddy?
What's
How you
going
doing?
on? Good.
Nothing.
Good to see your face. I feel like it's been forever now.
Yeah. It has been quite a while. Good to see
Yeah.
you.
So tell me your morning ritual because I wanted everyone to know exactly what you do nutritionally to be so pepped up in the morning.
Is this now? Let me ask. So, is this like a morning where my son wakes up at 5 a.m. pounding on his door, waking us out of a deep sleep, or is this a morning where I'm meeting with clients at 6 a.m.?
Wait,
So,
pounding on his door so he can't reach the doorknob,
no,
or
he
you
can
locked
reach
him
it.
in.
We locked him in from the outside in because he's 2.5 and he'll come out in the middle of the night. Like he'll open the door, come out, and kind of um, be crying or hungry, or he wet his diaper or something like that. And it's not just trying to get him to stay in his bed, but he'll wake up at 5 a.m. and come out of his room and wake everyone in the house up. My two older girls, they're 8 and 6, and so we're just trying to get him to stay in his room, to stay in his bed. But back to back to the original question. We're not bad parents just because we lock our child in his room.
No, I would do the same. My parents used to lock me inside of a camper. They said I would pound the shit out of that door.
Yeah, well, we did it with our daughter, and she would basically especially trying to put them to bed at night and stuff, and then eventually she'll just curl up on the floor and go to sleep. So I don't know. You got to train these little suckers, man. It's no one. No one's figured it out. There's no right or wrong way.
I would do the exact same thing as you probably. So
Yeah,
I'm not judging.
but with regard to the morning ritual, with the rituals hit or miss is because there's so many moving pieces. But with the morning ritual, it's usually wake up. I usually get up actually pretty early. So 5 a.m. I'm usually up at like sometimes 4:30, depending on kind of the time of year and how kind of motivated I am, what I'm working on in my business, how like what specifically I'm trying to focus on, and again, because the kids get up early, trying to knock out some kind of quiet time work, focus work before they get up, because then it's breakfast, get them ready for school, all the chaos that ensues, which takes a couple hours. And so usually it's wake up, drink a big glass of water. Usually I'll have kind of like some squeeze, like a lime or a lemon in the water, put some sea salt or some electrolyte powder in the water, sometimes some apple cider vinegar or some like chlorophyll, which is chlorophyll is like a green plant pigment that is good for cellular health. So I'll kind of experiment with a bunch of different things, take some supplements, and then usually that's it. Maybe some black coffee and kind of get to work. Or if I'm, like I was telling you, that we run a corporate wellness program here in Chandler, Arizona. And so sometimes I'm teaching a class that's at like 6 a.m., in which case I'll do all of the aforementioned stuff, but then I'll be out the door on the road and then run a class at 6 a.m. But in a perfect world, it's wake up kind of without an alarm clock. I might do 10 minutes of meditation, like mindfulness app, if you're familiar with that.
I heard you talk about it when I was listening to your podcast this morning, actually.
Yeah, so that helps me kind of get into a focused state, helps me reduce stress, helps me clear my mind, and also helps me oxygenate the body, because oftentimes we're very wound up from the time we wake up with the loud alarm clock to whether the kids are banging on the door to we're scrambling, to get ready for the workday, and we're just kind of in the sympathetic nervous state all day long. From we're sitting in the traffic, then we're at the office, and then we've got meetings, and maybe running out to lunch and not eating the best foods, and we're kind of in this hyper sympathetic state where we have short breathing patterns. And so starting the day with doing some deep guided breathing can go a long way towards oxygenating the body, which every one of our cellular processes runs from oxygen. So that is obviously pretty beneficial.
Well, so it sounds like then, since you're going to be one of the nutritional experts on the show, that you have a busy life just like everybody else, but you're making it happen.
Yeah, that's it. I I have a very busy life. Like I said, we have 3 kids and I have 2 businesses and I'm all over the place. And fortunately, I have a very supportive wife, but she's also quite busy with numerous work and volunteer activities. And so we don't make excuses. We have our priorities, and our priorities are family and community and nutrition. And, I make it a point to always, as often as possible, I make it a point to cook breakfast for my kids when I can, when I'm around, cook dinner, have family dinners, eat healthy foods, go out of my way to pick healthier food options. Is it always amazing? No. Do we eat pizza and burgers, and do I drink beer? Absolutely. And, so we're kind of real world people, but we have prioritized eating healthy and exercising. Absolutely.
Oh, good. Well, I guess we kind of jumped into your daily rituals without actually knowing who you are yet. So tell everybody about yourself, how you came to be such a diligent guy with your nutrition, and how you got into this field.
Sure. So, again, I'm Ben Brown, and I have a company called BSL Nutrition. BSL stands for Body Systems Labs. And I've kind of always been fascinated with health and nutrition and fitness from the time of, I was in high school, I was an athlete, but I had a couple injuries and maladies that I had to deal with. I tore my ACL the first scrimmage of junior year football season, which was a huge disappointment. And then similarly I suffered quite extensively with some stomach issues throughout high school and college, in the beginning parts of grad school, that took me a really long time to kind of figure out what the issue was. And so between the process of kind of the physical therapy, like I'd been interested in fitness and strength training, and so going down the physical therapy process with my ACL injury was very enlightening for me and really made me think that kind of I wanted to go and be a physical therapist when I grew up. And then coupled with, I still haven't grown up, so I still haven't really figured that out. and that coupled with really just kind of digging in and having to figure out my own gut issues, because conventional medicine wasn't doing it for me. They were just prescribing numerous different medications and antacids and things that were not helping or make the situation worse. Kind of was the stimulus for me to continue on with my education. First was in strength and conditioning. I started a personal training business. I went to a grad school and specialized in strength and conditioning and got a master's degree in exercise and wellness, and then started a personal training business really because it just was kind of, I was interested in it. I was good at it. And it kind of came naturally to me, my desire to help people with that aspect of their life. But then within that, as the more I practiced, as the years went by, I started to realize more and more the importance of nutrition as I dug in to start to heal my own gut issues. And so that involved going back to school for a second master's degree, this one in clinical nutrition, starting to study some functional medicine, and starting to experiment and do my own diagnostic testing, which is when I realized that I was suffering from like a pretty bad case of what they call H. pylori, which is a bacterial infection in the stomach. And that was coupled with some pretty significant food sensitivities, particularly to gluten. And so the combination of healing H. pylori with herbal-based protocols and supplementation and lifestyle, managing my stress, and then also nutritional interventions in terms of avoiding the inflammatory foods, really trying to eat as healthy as I could, kind of paved the way for me progressing into more nutrition coaching in my business, which led into learning more and more about supplementations, particularly through my education in clinical nutrition, the importance of supplementation for certain conditions and certain people at certain times. And that led me into starting my own supplement and nutrition coaching business, which is now BSL Nutrition. And our mission is really to just help people make smart nutrition simple. There's just such an influx of information out there with with media and social media and news and articles, and there's no lack of information about what works and what we should be doing, but there's so much confusion because of the expansiveness of the topics.
Hmm.
And it's our opinion that it just doesn't really need to be so difficult.
Yeah, I feel like there's a ton of information out there, and it's really confusing. Um, do most people who you speak with have a really good knowledge base, or have you found anyone who really understands the small parts of supplementation in order to kind of buy the right stuff or use the right things, or is there always a little bit of confusion?
Generally speaking, no. There's a lot of confusion, and they're
Yeah.
justifiably so. Like, people are deserve to be confused because of the things that we hear on the news and Dr. Oz and these quick fix. Like, look, nutrition and supplementation is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's only growing. And so it only makes sense that more companies are trying to get a piece of the pie, with putting their products out there, with marketing tactics, with everything that's online. And so again, is the very nature of humans is we want something to be easy. We want something to be a quick fix. We want that magic bullet. And it only makes sense that we're going to be intrigued by things that say, six-pack abs in 6 weeks or 4 weeks to
Yeah.
sexy
How long
glute.
did it how long did it take you to actually solve your gut thing? Just kind of creating a timeline for everybody.
It took me, it's something I suffered with for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And, and then it took me a couple years to remedy.
Hmm.
And that's the crazy part about nutrition and about human physiology, is we're sort of these ever-changing organisms that need different things at different times. And so nutrition for people is always evolving. There's never going to be a one size fits all, for sure. We know that. We know there's hundreds of diets on the market, and each of them works to their own degree, but they all work because they create a caloric deficit. Now, do they work for a long period of time? No, absolutely not, because they're not realistic for people to stick with. But the nature of diets is that they're creating a level of caloric restriction. So I don't care if you're doing the banana diet, or you're doing keto, or you're doing paleo, or you're doing Atkins, or whatever. It doesn't really matter that much in the short term. What matters is, are you learning nutritional habits for the long term? And so, we're just, like I said, we're sort of these ever-changing organisms that need different nutrients at different times, given the situations and levels of stress and things that we're dealing with. And so it's important for people to start to understand what specifically they need that fits in with their life,
Hmm.
and their limitations. That's
So,
kind of the most important thing.
so how does someone then how does someone know what they actually need? And actually, a second question was that I know we're going to talk about supplementation. You mentioned a lot of diets there. How does someone know if they need a diet or if they need to supplement?
Well, people should always, I think nutrition is always the most important thing. I mean, we have food for a reason, and supplements don't grow on trees, but fruit and vegetables do. And so I think it's always makes sense to start with real food first. And so, do people need a diet? I think that there's obviously a negative connotation to the word diet. What most people need to do is start to become more aware of what they're eating, so that they can start to control their caloric intake more effectively, so that they can then, whatever their goals are. I mean, I would say, generally speaking, most people want to lose weight because 65-70% of the American population is overweight. How do we do that? Well, you become more aware of what you're eating. And there's numerous ways to do that. By doing that, then you're likely going to start to reduce your caloric intake, which is kind of the guiding principle of how to lose weight. So you
Hmm.
just have to expend more calories than you're consuming.
Yeah, the calorie in, calorie out thing.
The calorie in, calorie out thing, and it's not, you know, It makes the most sense. Like it's the most important principle of weight loss. It's not the end all be all because there's other factors at play.
Mm-hmm.
But for most people, yeah, it's like eating just eating less food before you worry about eating organic and paleo and gluten free. It's like, you know what? Why don't you just start eating less? Let's start
Mm-hmm.
there.
I heard you say, I don't know if it was you or if it was your person you were interviewing about eating, about having people wait until they like don't feel full yet. Just wait and let your body adjust.
Mm-hmm.
Speak on that a little bit.
One of the habits that we implement with our clients from a nutrition coaching standpoint is getting them to actually experience what hunger feels like. Because we have this sort of the conventional wisdom is that people need to be eating multiple times, like 5, 6, 7 times throughout the day, eating every couple hours in order to, quote unquote, stoke the metabolism. And from a research standpoint, that's simply not true. What we know that actually does is causes people to gain weight because they end up consuming too much throughout the day because they're eating too frequently. So what we suggest is people stick to 3 solid meals per day, maybe 4, depending on the person, allowing 4 to 5 hours in between meals. And these habits aren't things that I came up with. I mean, intuitively, they're things that we know successful eaters practice, but there's a company called One by One Nutrition, and I've interviewed a couple of their people, Georgie Fear and Josh Hillis, on it. And they've created certain habits that all successful eaters practice. And one of those really important habits is eating 3 to 4 meals per day without snacking in between. But also within that is allowing 4 to 5 hours without eating and actually starting to experience hunger in between meals. Because one is we start to freak out intuitively, like we start to freak out when we start to get hungry, because we constantly have food all around us. So we think if we're getting hungry, it means maybe our blood sugar's dropping. Maybe if we're like a gym enthusiast, maybe we're losing muscle mass. And really, it's nothing to fear. Rather, it's something that should be embraced, because if our goal is weight loss, then typically when we're starting to experience hunger, the hormones that affect our weight loss are starting to get ramped up. And that's a very good thing that we want to experience. Now, we don't want to get to the point where we're ravenous and we'll eat anything in front of us, but just getting comfortable with experiencing a little bit of hunger for 30 to 60 minutes before our next meal is a very positive state to be in for people, to help acknowledge that, hey, I'm a little bit hungry. It's not a big deal, but it also means I'm burning more body fat, and nothing to freak out about. But also is a good sign that, okay, I'm actually ready for my next meal, as opposed to maybe you eat something in the morning and you're not hungry again for, 5, 6 hours. Well, that's totally fine. Just acknowledge it. And this is one of the ways that people can start to create more awareness around what it is that they need, what ratios of foods, protein, carbs, and fats should they be utilizing to build out their meals, by acknowledging what am I experiencing? Did I eat a meal and it's 2 hours later and I can't think straight? I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm having blood sugar issues. I'm starving again. I have low energy. Well, that's likely a situation where, okay, what you had at that last meal isn't the appropriate ratio for what your body's needs are at this given point in time.
To build awareness, is there any tools that you use? You have them write like notebooks or anything of
Yeah,
that nature?
so we kind of plug in these habits one step at a time, and then we have some accountability tools that they utilize, journaling being one of them. And it's just kind of writing down what you're eating and then writing down how you're feeling in between those meals. How's your hunger? How's your energy? How's your cravings? How's your sleep? How did your workout go? If that's something that they're implementing in and around that feeding window, those types of things, because then they can reflect back on it like the night of or the next day and say, okay, here's what I ate. I realized very quickly that I didn't get enough protein at that meal, or I didn't get enough fat because I was hungry again right away. So next time I come back to that situation, here's how I'm going to change it up.
Mm-hmm.
And by writing those things down and journaling it, we can kind of create this just sort of ongoing awareness tool.
Yeah. It almost reminds me of like, when you go visit someone in a hospital and you see up on the chart, it says, how you feeling today? And it's just a bunch of emojis slowly getting sad.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a good one though, to be utilizing. Like, how you feeling after this meal? And it's like happy face or just like, death face.
Yeah, I don't think going with like devil emojis or like peaches would probably work. So you got to stick with the faces.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So as we jump into nutritional, supplemental stuff, I was going to go over. I wrote down 3 cases here just so
Yeah.
it would kind of cover a broad basis of people listening. So I guess then, as we go through the cases, just give me an idea of like just your thought process on like what you would first maybe test on this person to know what they would need or what they typically need or blah blah blah. Right?
Yep.
Okay. So case 1. So there's a working mom who's 40 years old who likes to do yoga and run frequently, but she only runs under about 10 miles at a time. So her goal is to stay healthy and flexible.
Okay.
What do you think?
Well, I think that we need more information. So I think that
I can role play on this one.
Yeah,
I'm really good at playing 40-year-old.
Okay, so how are her energy levels throughout the day?
It feels like she really needs some coffee in the morning, but after that coffee, she feels good. She crashes around 3. Needs a payday.
Okay. A payday candy bar?
She wants a payday candy bar.
Okay. So low morning and low afternoon energy, but good in kind of in the middle of the day. And how's her sleep?
She tosses and turns a little bit. She's really stressed out by her young son is pounding at the door in the morning around 5 o'clock.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah. And what's her nutrition look like?
She believes it's healthy. However, she does slip up. An example of a good meal would be cantaloupe, honeydew, bacon, eggs, and coffee with cream. That's her breakfast.
Cool. And how does she, where is her problem areas on her body? Where does she tend to store the most body fat?
Body fat, I'd say around the hips. Just can't get them off those hips.
Kind of hips and thighs area?
Yep. So she started running a little bit thinking that would cut that weight off there.
Has it?
She's having ups. She's having ups and downs. She feels like she's having good fat and skinny mornings. She's testing genes on. They feel a little better some days, not others.
Sure. Okay. Cool. And is she still menstruating?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
She's very thankful for that.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, we can kind of go down the rabbit hole of finding more information, but typically you kind of want to typically what we'll do is we'll find out as much information as we can in terms of energy levels, hunger levels throughout the day, how's her sleep, because, what did you say her main goals are?
Just overall be quote unquote healthy and flexible. She really wants flexibility for some reason.
Okay. But she's practicing yoga.
She's in yoga.
Okay, cool. So, just kind of a general protocol that would probably be beneficial for a woman like this would be, one of the things that we'd look at before really getting too deep into supplementation would be lifestyle habits. Is how good is her sleep? We want to make sure we're optimizing sleep with everyone. It doesn't matter what the case is, but that's obviously a big one, to the degree that she should be waking up in the morning with the best energy possible, as opposed to dragging her butt out of bed, then needing coffee as kind of a way to mask that low energy, and then maybe needing more sugar or coffee later on in the afternoon is a pretty good sign that something's going on with hormones, maybe something's going on with adrenals, to the degree that if she continues down that road, it might be a situation where her energy keeps getting lower and lower, and her inability to burn body fat continues to be exacerbated. So we would work through nutritional protocols, making sure she's getting the right amount of calories, right amount of protein, carbs, and fats in her diet. And then from a supplemental standpoint, a few of the basic things that we would focus on would be like a multivitamin with iron, assuming she's menstruating consistently. Then, and of course she needs to check with her doctor on this to make sure she actually needs iron, but we would go multivitamin with iron, something that may help with helping manage her stress and possibly improving her sleep would be magnesium. Mm-hmm. And increasing her magnesium intake. Magnesium is one of the minerals, electrolytes, if you will, but it's one of the most abundant minerals in the human body. And it's one of the minerals that we use in hundreds of different biochemical reactions in the body. So we use it for blood sugar regulation. We use it for energy production and nervous system function. When I say nervous system function, what I specifically mean is helping activate the parasympathetic nervous system, or a rest and digest system, as opposed to what I talked about earlier is waking up in the morning in this sympathetic state, this fight or flight mode, like go, 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 which we're all in all the time. We really need ways to activate the parasympathetic nervous system to be able to chill out. A woman like this, young kids, she's been on the go. Usually it's a situation where like she gets the kids to bed, then maybe she has a chance to eat her dinner or catch up on some TV shows. And likely she needs some tools to start to chill out, which would mean maybe keeping the TV off, maybe increasing magnesium. And there's a couple ways that she could do that. But one would be like an Epsom salt bath. Mm-hmm. And so doing and this would probably be great for your type of clientele as well, people that are experiencing joint aches and pains and issues like that, but doing a really concentrated Epsom salt bath to the tune of like 2 to 4 pounds of Epsom salt in a really hot bath, and soaking in that for 20 or 30 minutes right before bed. And Epsom salt is really rich in magnesium chloride. And so because our skin is an organ, it can really soak in that magnesium, and that can just put people out cold, as well as really contribute to improving those magnesium deficiencies that all of us have, which we all have because our food quality is so poor, our soil quality is so poor, so that the plants that we're eating and the whole grains that we're eating just simply don't have the minerals in them that they had 50 or 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it becomes important. This is where supplementation really can make a difference, is for things like magnesium, minimizing any of those deficiencies by doing both topical and oral magnesium intake.
So so you mentioned about like crop soil and stuff like that. Do people that grow their own foods, do they typically have as many issues with magnesium if they're treating the soil and everything? Or is that just like, even if we're buying organic stuff or, say, the farmer and things like that, are most people still pretty deficient in that?
I don't have an answer for that. I just don't know. I imagine people that are eating. And it's not even organic, Sebastian. Organic is one of those marketing things. It's not that I don't believe in organic and reducing our exposure to pesticides and herbicides and fungicides and all that stuff. But when we're eating an organic apple in the middle of winter that's from Chile, it's like, how long has that apple been sitting on a ship or in a cargo plane and on the shelves at the store? To the degree that every day that passes that apple's on the shelf, it's reducing in nutritional value, such that we could have an organic apple that's been on the shelves or sort of in a container for 6 weeks versus a local apple that may not technically be organic, but it's from a local farmer that was just picked yesterday. And we could be getting considerably higher amount of nutritional value from the locally grown apple. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Actually, interesting. And I didn't tell you, we just recently closed, but I had a coffee roasting business. So we had people that were asking about, like, are your beans organic and blah, blah, blah. And they were grown organic. Obviously, they'd grown in a different country. So they're shipped over, and every person that touches them, every business that had to touch them until it got to the end consumer needed to be organic certified for that bean to be considered organic. So it was kind of funny. I just told people, like, it was grown organic, but technically we weren't organic. Yeah. So it wasn't organic. But I'm like, well, it seems kind of like a crock. So
it's really, it's all marketing thing, and it's expensive industry, and there's a lot of money to be made, and there's a lot of demand for it because of the perception that it's that much better. And to be fair, it's hard to say that it really is. Like, anytime we can reduce our exposure to these chemicals, that's a good thing. But is organic the end all be all? Definitely not. And back to the question of are we less nutritionally deficient if people are growing it themselves? Then probably, but still, because of modern day environmental toxicity and stress levels and gut health and all of these things that we're dealing with, I would venture to say that most people have some degree of deficiency, particularly in these really big, abundant minerals that we find in the body.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a random question here because sometimes I'll throw these in to make sure everyone has a little bit of a brain break. So it's a would you rather question, straight for you.
Cool.
So would you rather be a clown who distracts the bull or the cowboy who rides the bull? And why?
That's a good question.
Right?
Oh, I live in Arizona, so we go to like rodeo events. Like,
there's a lot out there.
No, well, there's not a lot, but there's this one restaurant in town that has a whole bull ring. It's called the Buffalo Chip. So we take the kids over, and these guys are nuts. But to answer your question, I think I would rather be this is all ego talking, but I think I would rather be the bull rider.
Is it because you want to have, like, they win like a big buckle, right?
Yeah, I just want to be the dude on, like the clowns don't get as much credit as those are the badass guys, but they don't get as much credit as they deserve. Nonetheless, the bull rider is the one that gets the notoriety. I'd take that.
Okay.
I
could see.
Just pump my ego up for all 1 second that I'd be able to stay on the bull.
That's a good answer. I feel like my answer would be a depends one, and it depends how many clowns are with me. Because if I'm the only clown, I don't want to be that clown.
So I don't want to divert too much from the topic at hand, but we got married in Arizona here going on, over 10 years ago. And after the reception, we went to this bar actually across the street from this buffalo ring that I was just talking about, called Harold's, and they have a mechanical bull. And both my wife and I on our wedding night were like riding the mechanical bull. And of course she gets on, and the guy operating the bull's like super nice. She's going slow. Everyone's cheering. I get on there, and like, he just crushed me. Like, go flying 10 feet off the bull into the side paneling. It's brutal.
Have you ever seen anyone actually hit their head on a mechanical bull? Like, I bet that could happen.
I'm sure it could happen. And fortunately, no, but to be fair, I haven't really experienced too much mechanical bull action.
Okay. Well, it's still a good answer. I like it. The ego part works. Let's go on to case number 2 then.
Cool.
All right. 35-year-old male with weekly moderate lifting sessions, more anaerobic than aerobic. In regards to goals, he's not really concerned much about hypertrophy or muscle growth. And the goal is just to stay strong as they get older. He has energy in the morning when he wakes up, and going to sleep 90% of the time, it feels pretty good.
So he's just feeling pretty good, has a pretty well-rounded diet.
He's eating keto.
Okay.
And I guess let's just say this person is like, I keep thinking about like the paleo people. It's like, what paleo are you? Oh, I'm an 80-20. Let's say an 80-20, cool. 80-20 keto.
That's cool. Hey, okay, so he feels good. He's training for strength. 35 years old. Cool. There's a couple things that we could do to support him with his ketogenic diet. One would be, and this is kind of in general, is a really beneficial supplement in multiple capacities, is creatine. Can be really beneficial for short burst power output. That we're seeing not only is really beneficial, it's kind of one of the most researched supplements out there that has gotten a bad rap, but I think we're coming around in terms of really the benefit of utilizing creatine for all levels of athletes. So anyone really can benefit from it, specifically, even elderly in terms of heart function, for people that have traumatic brain injuries, the benefit of creatine and mitochondrial function, especially in the brain and stuff like that. So creatine would be a good one. I would say for someone who's keto and or hardcore paleo would be definitely the magnesium, but going out of their way to make sure they're getting all of those big electrolytes. So some sort of electrolyte powder that has magnesium and potassium and sodium. One of the things that people don't realize when they go low carb, or paleo or keto, specifically if they haven't eaten very well in the past, is that they lose a lot of water. And that's one of the things that people experience. So, we switch to a clean eating diet. We go paleo, we go keto. We lose a lot of weight right off the bat, but people don't realize that's a lot of water weight. And with that water it's pulling out a lot of these minerals from our cells. And so one of the best things we can do is making sure we're actually getting in enough of these electrolytes, sodium, magnesium, potassium, bicarbonate, phosphorus, all of these things. So using a complex electrolyte powder, or just making sure you're actually going out of your way to salt your foods enough. There's a bit of a fear of excessive sodium intake in our society. And if you're the type of person that's eating junk food, then yeah, stay away from extra salting of your food, because you're likely taking in enough as it is. But for people that are eating well, eating clean, whole foods, so to speak, well, then you really probably, and it's very individualized in terms of our sodium needs, but you probably need to be going out of your way to salt your food a little bit more, to make sure you're getting these minerals in that are going to help drive energy production and recovery, and brain function, all of those things. So a good electrolyte powder would be beneficial. Doing something, I would say, is he utilizing supplementation around his workouts?
Zero supplementation.
Okay. Well, definitely supporting his hashtag gains with, think some kind of research proven workout supplements would be essential amino acids. So he could get this, making sure he's hitting a protein goal. So making sure he's getting enough animal protein in throughout the day to support his lean muscle tissue, support his caloric needs, first and foremost. Second to that would be utilizing protein in and around his workouts. I am biased because I have my own supplement, kind of all-in-one workout powder, but utilizing the essential amino acids can be very beneficial in and around workouts. And these essential amino acids are really what we would get. These are the essential amino acids are 9 of kind of 20 something amino acids that we get from animal proteins, right? We get from the foods that we eat. The essential ones are the ones that the body can't manufacture on its own, that we need to get from our diet. But what we know from research is utilizing these essential amino acids kind of around your workout can lead to more workout energy, faster workout recovery. But to be fair, if someone's getting enough protein throughout the day, then it's not that important, especially if he doesn't have the goals of increasing lean muscle mass. But for someone like the female that we were talking about, oftentimes we'd see in that type of demographic, 40-year-old busy mom runner, usually they're not getting enough protein in their diet to support their body composition goals and energy demands, in which case, again, an essential amino acid powder or protein powder would be beneficial.
So I guess for everyone listening to, just to clarify, is that, so they're probably everyone's familiar with like pre-workouts and things like that. Is that like a pre-workout? Is it an energy thing? Is it just a supplementation thing, or does it matter when it's taken?
So specific to the essential amino acids?
Yeah, well, yeah, the one that you're speaking about, because I feel like a lot of people that I encounter that take some type of thing surrounding their workout, I feel like they do it because they want energy in the workout. I don't hear them talk about, well, here's my BCAAs and my creatine in here and so on.
Yep. So the popular ones we're kind of have this terminology of pre-workout. Most people are familiar with a pre-workout in that it's some sort of supplement that we take in the pre-workout window, usually 30 to 60 minutes before our training session. And that's the purpose. What most people are looking for is a boost in energy. And what they're finding in these products is usually an excessive amount of caffeine. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We do know there's caffeine is a good ergogenic aid, meaning it can actually help support sport performance. It's the amount that people are getting that can actually be problematic, especially when we're using it to kind of mask these low energy type symptoms. A lot of times we see this in people that train first thing in the morning, or later at night. It's been a long day and they need a boost, or it's first thing in the morning, they drag their butt out of bed and then they need sort of some excessive amount of caffeine to get their butt going in the gym. That's not necessarily a good thing. But typically what we're seeing in these pre-workouts is caffeine, BCAAs are the branch chain amino acids. Those are just 3 of the 9 essential amino acids. And what we're starting to see with the BCAAs is they're really just not as beneficial as they have been made out to be, as the marketing would suggest, especially in the workout industry. We're much more beneficial getting all of the essential amino acids, particularly from our food, but next to getting our food, if we're still trying to contribute to our net protein intake or our total daily protein intake, then getting those from the essential amino acids before and during the workout, or before and after, it doesn't matter that much, would be beneficial. Now, the product that we created is called Complete Essentials. And what we suggest is people take it before and during their workouts. That way they're kind of getting these essential amino acids into their bloodstream. And the beauty of the essential amino acids is that, unlike a whey protein or a plant-based protein, which does contain the essential amino acids, but in varying degrees, there's a difference between the plant protein and a whey protein, which is animal-based. The animal-based, the whey protein, has a better amino acid profile than the plant-based proteins. That's why it can be more beneficial depending. But the beauty of the free-form amino acids, the essential amino acids, is that they don't require any digestion. So it's easy to take them before and during your workouts. They're immediately kind of shuttled through the gut lining into the bloodstream. They bypass the liver, and kind of are utilized right away for fuel, and kind of are supporting that muscle protein synthesis and muscle protein breakdown processes that we're very familiar with as it relates to exercise, if that makes sense.
Do you, I'm writing a list a little bit as we go. Can I send you that list and you send me some links and I'll put them on the show notes?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, please.
You mentioned creatine as well, and I know that I've had a lot of people ask me what type of creatine, because I know there's a couple blends. There's the monohydrate. Is there a certain one that you tend to use more?
Just get the creatine monohydrate. I mean, and most people around 5 grams a day. It's all you need. You don't need to load it. Just take it consistently, and everyone can benefit from it. Like, you might experience a little bit of water, like weight gain through water retention. At first, people might notice. It's not a bad thing, but it's kind of keeping more water in the cells. But 5 grams a day of a creatine monohydrate, you'd be just fine. There's really not big difference.
Would that theoretically offset the water loss with a keto or a paleo diet? And then you don't lose that. You don't lose all the magnesium and the sodium.
Yes. I don't know if you would retain those minerals, but you could play around with it for sure.
Okay. I'm going to measure my urine for sure.
Yeah, do it.
Okay. Case 3. So we have a 50-year-old male looking to get the body of a 25-year-old again, experiences lack of energy and overall good health, but has, I guess I wrote my opinion there. It's pretty lofty goals.
Yeah.
So trains like a maniac to do it.
So 50-year-old, he's training hard. He wants to pack on some lean muscle tissue, get pretty ripped, right? And so, yeah, I mean, okay, so a few things. First is making sure he's hitting his protein goals, like making sure he's getting enough protein throughout the day. And when I say protein goals, for someone like this, at least 1 gram per pound of body weight. Okay. That's kind of an easy way to think about it. Or we could even say, what does he weigh?
Let's go with 185.
Okay. Maybe he wants to pack on 10 or 15 pounds of lean tissue. So maybe he should be closer to 200 grams of protein per day. And I would make sure he's just kind of splitting that up throughout the day through his given meals. So this is a situation where it's like, yeah, we would normally say eat 3 to 4 meals per day. But for a guy like this, or someone that's really maybe a hard gainer, or maybe trying to put on some weight, then they may have to eat 5 or 6 or 7 times a day. Just depending on their appetite, their digestion, all that kind of stuff. So, we take that 200 grams and split it up. Let's say he has 5 meals of 40 grams of protein, which, would be like, for ease, 6 to 8 ounces of protein at each of his meals. Okay. So making sure he's getting that, first and foremost, making sure he's sleeping 7 to 8 to 9 hours a night, especially for a guy like this. This is someone where, if we're talking about blood work, I'd make sure we check his testosterone levels. And just make sure he's in the normal range and high normal range.
Mm-hmm.
And because if he's not, he's going to have a hard time laying down new muscle tissue.
Yeah. I know there's probably a lot of people who have like what they would consider a low testosterone. Is there, other than a hormonal replacement, or is there other things they could do to improve that, or is there natural
Yeah,
ways?
sleep,
Okay.
manage sleep, manage stress, improve gut health. So those are things that I'm going to talk about here because
I
a
heard you say
lot,
parasympathetic, sympathetic a couple times. So,
yeah, and it's always going to come back to that is we want these supplementation, sort of the sexy industry where it is. I mean, it's like we're taking these magic pills that have all these touted benefits, but really, if you're not doing the foundational things right, if you're not eating right, if you're not sleeping right, if you're not allowing yourself to recover in between workouts, right, we're only as effective as our recovery.
mm-hmm.
And so this, for a guy like this, making sure he's not overdoing it in the office, in the gym, making sure he's sleeping enough, and making sure his digestion's really good, so that all of this protein that he's trying to take in, if he's not digesting it appropriately, then we're spinning our wheels. Even if he's taking all these protein powders and stuff like that, if his digestion sucks, then what a waste of time.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I have a client just like this. He's actually 70. He just turned 70. He's a big time lawyer in Phoenix here. And he's extremely stressed out. Avid exerciser, exercises every day, tons of joint issues. One of those sort of ex-college athlete, super type A personality. He played football and water polo and just kind of one of those hardcore dudes. He's had like 15 different surgeries on different joints, and and he's kind of progressively been experiencing weight loss over the last few years. He had his gallbladder removed recently, and now has found that his digestion is impaired. He keeps losing weight, and he just wants to pack on some muscle tissue. And so for a guy like this, we kind of took a step back and said, okay, well, how are you managing your stressors? Again, he's in this sort of sympathetic nervous system response. He's on all day, every day. Phone,
Mm-hmm.
he's always on. Doesn't take any time off. Gets decent sleep, eats really clean, but wasn't eating enough calories. And so we had to increase his caloric intake and figure out how to start to improve his digestion so that the calories he was taking in, he was better able to digest, absorb, and assimilate, so that we were working on building up lean muscle tissue. So for a guy like this, we really worked on his digestion. He was having trouble breaking down fats, but the beauty of fats is they're so calorically dense. So for a person that's trying to gain weight, we just need to get more calories into them. Once they're hitting their protein goals, get more calories, which we can do through consuming more fats, but he wasn't digesting them appropriately. So we kind of had to work with some digestive enzymes, which can be really beneficial for people. So most people, as they age, our digestion starts to suffer because we stop producing some of the HCl and pancreatic enzymes that the body produces. HCl stands for hydrochloric acid. And that's something we would naturally produce in the stomach to help break down proteins. And then other enzymes down the road that help break down the protein, carbs, and fats and sort of neutralize the stomach acid as it drops down into the intestines, so that we can absorb those nutrients. So supporting people with digestive enzymes usually is one of the first steps that we take in terms of supplementation. Like, why worry about any of these fancy things if the quality food that they're eating isn't being absorbed? And then let's see, next to that, for a guy like this, so let's assume that his T levels are pretty good, he's sleeping enough. Then we could look at, we could look at a couple different things. Certainly the creatine, certainly the pre-workout, post-workout supplements. We would want to take advantage of some nutrient timing and make sure he's getting enough protein and carbs in and around his workouts. And that's the situation where we could really go a lot higher in his carbohydrate intake, be it during and or after his workouts, from fast digesting carbs. And I don't know if you want to consider this a supplement or not, but there's some carbohydrate powders that could go a long way for a guy like this to really help boost calories and pack on some lean muscle tissue and help promote fast recovery. because we're so insulin sensitive in that post-workout window, that when we load up a bunch of carbohydrate, the body does a much better job, assuming he's already pretty lean, a much better job of shuttling those sugars into the muscles, into the liver, to kind of replenish the glycogen that we spent during our exercise.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's a lot you can do. I'm going to tell him.
Tell him, yeah, for sure. But like, again, we're not getting too flashy, but we could use some fish oil to kind of support joint health and inflammation. We could use curcumin-based supplements and bromelain for inflammation and joint health, because we know that inflammation can inhibit so many different biological processes, from energy production to mitochondrial function to brain health to sleep, all of that, to muscle recovery, all that stuff.
Well, you mentioned something with digestion that it just triggered a thought in my mind that you've heard the term sarcopenia, right?
Of course.
Okay. So for everyone out there who hasn't heard before, so sarcopenia, actually I had a patient approach me one time. He's like, "Hey, I heard about this thing. It's sarcopenia." And it was like a light bulb went off because I want to say he's about 65 or so. And he's like, "You think that's happening to me?" And I thought, well, your weight training, that'll probably offset some of it. But sarcopenia is a loss of muscle size, I believe. Not necessarily, I don't think it says actually strength, but with age. So you said people lose their ability to digest when they get older. So is there a correlation to that, or is that just a observation?
No, I can't say. I'm sure there is, but back up a sec. Sarcopenia is what we say to each other when we want to give each other a hard time. Like, "Hey, buddy, what's up? I see the sarcopenia is you see suffering from the sarcopenia again."
1 year old or sarcopenic?
Yeah. So, but yeah. So we do tend the average American tends to lose 1 pound of muscle mass for every year after the age, I think, of 35 or 50. I'm not exactly sure, but I want to say 35. And that's a problem, obviously, because most people's weight stays the same, if not increases as they age, right? To some degree. So that means we're losing muscle mass and we're increasing body fat. Now, yeah, and I think a lot of it's correlated to digestion, in terms of as our digestion becomes increasingly impaired, we lose the taste and ability to appropriately digest these animal proteins, which kind of offsets our preference for them. So a lot of people, as they get older, especially elderly people, tend to not eat a lot of protein. They don't really have the taste and or digestion for protein, which is a major issue, because they need significantly more protein than you or I, being, 30-something individuals that strength train consistently. And so finding better ways for them to actually be able to digest these proteins is incredibly important. Absolutely.
Was there a trick to, I almost feel like my experience with my grandpa and I've noticed other geriatric populations, it's like they start to wither, and it's almost like you start, or we did, it's like whatever he wants, just give it to him. If he wants cookies, let him eat it, because he wanted the calories on. But if they need the protein, then, so how do you trick them into actually eating that stuff?
Well, you get them to do it the right way from the beginning, and make sure we're optimizing digestion. And if they're starting to produce those digestive juices, one of the things we don't talk about is hydration, and especially in elderly population. And is our pancreas dumps out something like 7 or 8 cups of pancreatic enzymes into the gastric system in order to break down all the food that we're consuming at any given meal. And if you're dehydrated, then obviously your body's ability to produce these gastric juices is going to be impaired, to the degree that obviously we're not producing the gastric juices, we're not digesting, assimilating, and absorbing our foods. And so making sure people are hydrated, for one, and that's always why I start my day with a huge glass of water, and why most people should, and certainly be drinking enough water throughout the day. And then, the next step is, okay, let's improve the digestion. If we need to support with supplements, HCl, digestive enzymes, and then it could be as easy as cooking the foods in a way that makes it more palatable or easy for them to digest, and then supplementing with protein powders. The essential amino acids, like I talked about in the free form, are a great way for people to get these important proteins in a way that's easily digestible, and or just using protein powders or meal replacement shakes or stuff like that. But yeah, sometimes it's just tricking them, like, here, drink this lemonade and we put essential amino acids in it, at least until we can get them to a position where they're willing and cognizant enough of what they need to be doing on their own.
Yeah. That's interesting. We really came a long ways from that 40-year-old mom who liked to do yoga, and now we're in geriatrics.
Yeah, totally.
I don't think it'd be a complete nutritional or supplementation conversation without talking about vegans or vegetarians, really. I know I didn't put a case down with this, but in regards to like essential amino acids or things that actually, well, I'll just bring up a story. So I have a couple friends right now that they watched that Netflix movie, and it scared them out of eating meat.
What was it? What the Health?
Yeah, I think it was that. So they told me, they're like, we're going vegan, or I don't remember if it's vegan or vegetarian, but they're like, we're going to go this. And I said, well, do you know what that entails? And they said, well, we just don't want to eat meat. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure being not a non-meat eater, it takes a lot more thought. And so do you have any thoughts on all this?
I think that in order to be a good vegetarian or vegan, you have to be very diligent about your nutrition. So if it's something you want to do, then I fully support it. But again, you have to be really good about your nutrition in terms of prepping and planning and making sure you're getting a wide variety of foods, which most people just don't do. But also you need to supplementation on top of it, because there's certain things you're just not getting in your diet, like like B12, like carnitine, like all of the essential amino acids. And so while it can be more challenging, it can be done well to a degree, but it's very rare to find someone that's doing it correctly to the degree that they're not reinforcing any nutrient deficiencies. And so a lot of times what we see is, people decide to go vegan, which means they avoid animal protein, but they just start eating more junk food, right? Mm-hmm. They start eating more dairy, not dairy. They start eating more refined and processed carbohydrates to support their caloric needs, without focusing on improving the quality of their foods, increasing their fruit and vegetable intake, going out of their way to eat both raw and cooked foods, and again, getting it from a wide variety of foods, making sure they're combining foods like beans and rice and things so that they can support the essential amino acid profile that they need. And then again, is supplementing with things like carnitine and like vitamin B12 and zinc and the essential amino acids. So if it's something you want to do, then go for it, but don't, it's not something to be done on a whim. It's something to be very well researched and kind of just like anything, it's going to take practice, as it's really a skill to be able to eat that way. Just like it's hard enough to eat healthy in general, to say nothing of how hard it is to eat well as a vegan or vegetarian. So if it's something, it's rare. I'll be honest. It's rare for me to see a vegan that's actually healthy.
Yeah. I don't, like I said in the beginning, I don't have a lot of experience with nutrition, but just knowing that, like you said, it's really hard for most people to eat well with having the availability of animal proteins. To take that away, all of a sudden, this becomes a lot harder job. And I don't know if a lot of people can manage it, but I think it's great in theory, and I'm more power to them, but I don't want that work.
I think first of all, nutrition's too dogmatic. There's no one size fits all. I think it's asinine to suggest that all meat is bad. I know people have various reasons for doing, for going vegetarian or vegan, and that's all good and well, but I think people need to, listen to their body and kind of make it an educational process, and like take a smaller step is like, hey, would it be a bad idea for all of us to eat more fruits and vegetables specifically, to say nothing of eliminating animal proteins, eliminating dairy, eliminating gluten, blah, blah, blah. All these foods are bad. What if we just started eating more vegetables? Like, would everyone benefit from that? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
100%. And that in and of itself would take care of so many different things. I think we're also obviously biochemically individual. We have different, obviously, as I'm talking about, digestion needs at different times, like especially for a guy like you, if we're nurturing an acute phase injury, we have much higher, up to 50% higher protein demands so that we can support the inflammatory process, lay down scar tissue, and support the increase in metabolic output that happens in the body. If we're under a tremendous amount of stress, we have higher protein needs. And so people are understanding the diverse nature of how the human body works. And first and foremost, like I said at the beginning, it's just, you have to start to practice and get in tune with what it is that you need, what makes you feel good. Just because coworker Janet is practicing keto and has lost, 20 pounds and feels amazing doesn't mean it's the right diet for you. One is she's 20 something and has no kids, and you're 40 something, have 3 kids and an extremely busy lifestyle, and you don't have the first clue about healthy eating. And she's been, whatever, she has a dietetics degree. Like, it's just, everyone's so individualized.
Yeah. This would be a little bit tangent conversation, but you brought up keto again. One day I researched and looked about just to see keto options if you're eating out, and McDonald's, Wendy's, like I can't tell you how much fast food I actually saw as that. And I started looking on Instagram just to see what are keto recipes. I can't tell you how much dairy and meats, and I'm just surprised. Like it was kind of like a reckless way of eating fat, although the processing part of the food wasn't really even addressed. And now dairy probably presents a whole nother issue for people, but I'm sure you have some thoughts on that. But I was just surprised.
Well, it's the same deal. It's the same deal as it's when we get polarizing with the type of nutrition is like, we have macronutrients, we have protein and carbs and fats, and we have all 3 of those, and the body has needs for all of those to some degree. But when we start to isolate and say, okay, we're just going to do predominantly fat, well, it becomes much more challenging to do it the right way, the healthy way, if you will, from what we know about nutrition. And of course, it's this ever evolving industry. Like, we don't know that much in the scope of the nutritional realm, but as it pertains to keto, and something that I've certainly experienced or practiced to some degree and have had a lot of clients utilize it, it's hard, just like vegan, it's hard to do it right. And we can easily fall in the trap of using more oils and junk foods and fattening dairy sources to create that caloric load that we need to make it into the keto diet at the expense of our health. Just, because of this notion that this one diet plan is so much more beneficial. Yeah, it has, it has medical benefits. It has weight loss benefits. It has cognitive benefits. That's all good and well. But for most people, honestly, most people that we're dealing with, most people that are listening to this, it's like, we don't have to get that far out.
Vegetables, water, magnesium,
right?
And the compound powder.
Yeah, the complete essentials.
The complete essentials. So on a personal level, then, is there anything that you're actually really excited about with nutrition or healthcare in general right now? Like, is there anything you've seen, you're like, holy shit, this is going to be great, and you want to learn more about it?
I'm pretty excited about genetic testing.
Yeah.
I don't have much experience with it, but I'm very excited because we know there's this field of epigenetics and the fact that we all have all of these genes that kind of determine our disease state and our body function and our ability to lay down new muscle tissue and our sort of genetic predisposition to certain things. But we also know that our environment acts as a trigger in order to turn these things on and off. And so by identifying some of these genetic factors earlier on in our life, we can then determine, okay, well, is it actually, do I need a ketogenic diet because I have this ApoE4 gene that leaves me significantly more susceptible to dementia as I age, wherein if I'm eating more of a Mediterranean style diet, the likelihood of this gene being switched on is going to be much more reduced. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Genes that determine our caffeine sensitivity, genes that determine the type of training that we are most likely to benefit from. Are we going to be more likely to do better with strength training? Or are we going to be much more suited to be a, cardiovascular training athlete, things like that. So I think that that's really an emerging field that we're going to be able to use a lot of this testing to start to make some more strategic recommendations with our nutrition and supplementation as we move forward.
Do you happen to have, you didn't write any posts or have a video on that in case people want to learn more about that, do you?
I don't. If I was to, I don't have anything. And I will I'll send you a link though that would be a resource for that.
Okay. How can everyone reach you?
Our website is BSL, so for Body Systems Labs, bslnutrition.com. And we write all kinds of articles on nutrition, fitness, supplementation. We have our podcast, The Smart Nutrition Made Simple Show, that is on iTunes. And you can also have a link in our blog on bslnutrition.com. And then we are on social media at BSL Nutrition. We've got somewhat active kind of social media platform, although I'm not super into spending a ton of time posting, but we do post content on those sites and have a community page that is BSL Nutrition Community that everyone's welcome to come on by and check out. I post Facebook Live videos to that. And then I think, and then we've also got a shop on our bslnutrition.com page for a product called The Complete Essentials, which again is kind of an all-in-one workout product. It includes not only the essential amino acids that I talked about, but also includes the electrolytes, sodium, magnesium, potassium in really high quantities. So it's kind of like a Gatorade without all the junk. Plus you're getting the easily digestible proteins, plus you're getting L-carnitine. So we talked about that for vegans, but L-carnitine is something that helps us utilize fat as fuel more effectively. It also has citrulline. Citrulline is a nutrient that helps us kind of buffer lactic acid. So when we're exercising, we build up lactate, and it helps our body clear that lactate and ammonia so that we can do more work in a shorter amount of time, but also we can recover a lot faster so that we're not as sore in between workouts. And then we don't use any caffeine or artificial sweeteners. So we just use stevia and some natural flavoring. And we've got a grape and a lemon lime. And I'll tell you what, for all of your followers, I'll give you guys 15% off your first order.
Cool.
And so why don't we do, what's the name of your P2 Sports Care? Is that?
Yeah.
So we'll use the code. Promo? Say again?
Go ahead.
So we'll use the code P2 Sports Care at checkout for 15% off your first order for all of your listeners. Let's
do that. And for everyone listening, I'll post all of it. It was a lot of information we went through. So for the cases, I'll post some links on some of the things we spoke about and some links.
And one of the things that I appreciate most is interacting with people that have questions about these types of topics. So my suggestion would be to come on over to our Facebook page and again, BSL Nutrition Community or at BSL Nutrition, and just post some questions if you have any related to this or anything else. And I'd be happy to either answer it on the page and or film a video for you. Okay.
I bet the first question is going to be, so how many seconds were you on that bowl?
Not very many.
All right.
Not very many, considering the number of beers that I had.
Yeah. Well, time gets distorted when beers are consumed as well.
And it does.
All right. Well, yeah. Thanks so much for coming on. This was fun.
Sebastian, it's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate the types of questions, and it's been fun. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah, for sure. I'll come up with, I don't know how many times I can role play and act different. So
And maybe we'll just get the actual client on next time.
okay. Well, I thought I did an okay job speaking for them.
I think you did well. I think it was good. And I think people get the idea that
Yeah.
we really try and get things individualized, and there's so many underlying factors that we want to look at before just saying, should I be taking a probiotic? Should I be taking fish oil? Like, maybe, but what else is going on that we could probably address before supplementation?
Yeah. I'm surprised you don't have, or I haven't seen it yet on your podcast. Do you have any where you actually do a Q&A, kind of like a consult with somebody?
Not yet, but I'm just starting to roll those out.
Okay. I'll link to one when you get that one live. I'll put it in this note too.
Cool. Sounds great.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right, brother. Take care. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
Yeah.